What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker.
Amir Rahimi.
And today, for the great debaters, we're taking it to the infamous man, Mobb Deep. Alright, Amir, so today's episode, we're talking about Mobb Deep, the infamous. This is their second album. It came out in 95. And this is also my favorite album that came out in 1995.
What?
So, yeah, this is my favorite.
How did I not know this?
This is my favorite album that came out in 1995. So, I love this album on so many levels. And we're going to do a best albums on this with an artist, so get ready for that. But, I'm just in love with this album, man. It's so amazing on so many levels. But, for our debate today, we're going to talk about two of the biggest songs and see which one is the better song, in our opinion. Shook One, Part 2, and then Survival of the Fittest. So let's start off with Shook One's Part 2 because, as we discussed on our grand finale, great debaters that we just ran with the DOC, it's interesting to me that this song was so big and so popular and they put it toward the end of the album. Like, I kept waiting, like, where is this song?
I know, right?
But Shook One's Part 2, man. Amir, break it down.
Okay, first off, I've had so many conversations with this guy. I'm shocked we've never even talked about the Infamous before. I don't know why.
Okay.
The fact that it's your favorite album, 1995, now I'm like running through. We're going to have a conversation on this video and maybe debate about what my favorite album, 1995 is. Which it might be. I'm just off the top of my head, I'm looking at my wall and I see Only Go for Cuban Links. And that one's very special to me too. But
that's a good one.
Woof.
But Infamous is better.
Speaking of which, before we hop into Shook One's Part 2, I wanted to know, so you were obviously growing up and listening to this music. I'm kind of listening to it as It's been out for quite some time now. Juvenile Hell came out in 93, and I'm sure you've heard that when it came out. I wanted to know, when you hearing this, and they're 19, as they say in Shook One's Part 2, I'm only 19, my mind is older. They're really young. Juvenile Hell, was this a dramatic departure from Juvenile Hell, or was it something that you weren't expecting after hearing that debut album? Because this is...
I wasn't expecting it at all. I didn't really care for the album. They had Large Professor, Premier, they had worked with a couple big people, but I just didn't think that it was executed very well, and I just... The It From the Back song was the best song, but that also wasn't like a phenomenal song.
Yeah.
But I just didn't think that it showed or even hinted at the promise that Mobb Deep had that we get on the Infamous. And they took, much more control over their own music by producing almost the entire album, by being hands-on in that way. And then I think also lyrically, thematically, everything just went up, got ratcheted up 100%. So I don't understand or know. I talked to Havoc and Prodigy about this when I interviewed them, and they just said that they just got better and focused on things differently. But
and older too.
It's just like a light years quantum leap that I was not expecting at all, because to have, they switched labels from 4th and Broadway going to Loud Records, and they took over more control of the music, and clearly it paid off.
So funny you say that they took more control of the music, because on Shook One's Part 2, an interesting thing is that it's censored.
Right.
Which I found out kind of recently, and I was kind of shocked because it's probably the most hardcore censored song I've heard. There's a couple mentions of the N-word here and there, but they bleep them out, even though you can tell where they were supposed to be in the song. Dude, this song is, when I think of, not just the song, this song and Survival of the Fittest and most of the album, when you think of, the hardcore, the street, the gritty, quote unquote, these things that people define the 90s, particularly the New York rap, this is perfectly in that category, as well as, the New York State of Minds, the Gimme the Loots, the Black Moon as well, and people like that. This song is something special. So Shook One's Part 2, which is Part 2, not Part 1, which a lot of people don't even know about Part 1. The 19 older line I love, because you have to think about it. These people were when I was 19, I wasn't talking about or seeing anything like this.
Right.
The rock you in your face, have your brain with a nose bone. I was just like, dude, come on, who is this guy? And this is one of those things that I don't know Havoc, I don't know Prodigy, but I don't even want to go to New York, because if I see these guys, I might like be, shook, quote unquote. It's
right.
Crazy. And Havoc, dude, like his verse I thought is so great on this song too. I don't know, man. The chorus, Shook One's part too, bro. What do you think about it?
Man, like I said, this is one of the reasons why this is my favorite album of 95, because this song is so stellar. Sonically, I really like the beat because it had this eerie somberness to it that, we had heard, I think, with Wu-Tang, with Nas, and then Mobb Deep, I think. Even though RZA obviously produced the Wu-Tang stuff, I think the Mobb Deep, because there's only two of them, I think it felt more personal to Havoc and Prodigy, and they were meshed more with the sound, because the Wu-Tang, because there's so many personalities and so much going on in every song, in a good way, I just thought this one was it just hit me so hard, man. I was like, this is astonishing. And I think that, the brain with the nose bone, that's like one of the more dramatic lines. Gunshots will make you levitate as well, of course. Yeah. So, Prodigy just coming in the way that he did, it was so astonishing to me. And then Havoc, every rhyme I write is 25 to life, is a great way. And the fact that there's only two verses, in a very different way, but like Nice and Smooth, most of their songs was just one each. I like the fact that they didn't stick to what was becoming more of a formula of having the three verses.
Yeah.
They just did the two, and the songs are phenomenal. Obviously, it had the intro and the talking and stuff. But I just think both of their lyrics stuck so much to the topic and to their thuggery, their brand of, being infamous. It was just astonishing to me when I heard it, dude. I loved it.
And there's one thing I want to know too, because obviously this was in the 8 Mile soundtrack movie, everything. The Last Battle, right? So, did this song blow up or have a resurgence after that movie, by chance?
To my knowledge, it did. I think all those songs did, because that was at the cusp of like the file sharing and things moving more onto the computer as opposed to CD, vinyl, or cassette, which was the case back in 95 when the album came out. It was at that point much more cassette and CD. So, yeah, I think obviously the 8 Mile endorsement had a lot to giving it kind of a second life. But I think from 95 till 8 Mile in 2002, it definitely was held in high regard by many a person, including myself.
Dang right. So, Survival of the Fittest, man.
Oh man, that's obviously toward the beginning of the album and really helps set the stage for what the Infamous encapsulates and encompasses. And I thought that, again, just the beats on this album, there isn't a lot of sonic or tempo variants, but they're all just so mesmerizing because of the bleakness and the somberness of it. And being from the East Coast, being from Maryland, like when you get into the fall and the winter,
yep.
And like even though, I think this album came out more in the summer, ironically, but when you get into the fall and the winter, and you can the songs to me take an extra dimension, because it's kind of like that fog or that coldness and that harshness, the brick as they would say, in certain places. It just gives you a different dimension, and you can identify with the music more. Just like out here on the West Coast now, we can, when people rap about the sun and the palm trees and all that, that's what we see every day. But Survival of the Fittest, I thought, helped kick off the album very strong. And again, just this mentality that they had of only the strong survive, that was a thing. And I think also in putting it into context coming off Juvenile Hell, I also thought it was interesting that they had gotten so much better, or at least the music they made was so much better.
Yeah.
And it was like they were not only speaking literally from a Darwinistic perspective, but then figuratively from the fact of like, I don't know if they intended this, but I also listening to it like, man, we survived, you know, some music that wasn't as good, and now we're making better music. So
That's
for
funny.
for me, it was just astonishing.
Man, in a lot of our videos, we talked about amazing opening lines. Come on, man. There's a war going on outside. No man is safe from. I've heard that like switched a lot of times since its release. That's such a special line, and it's amazing. And Prodigy, the things he says, where he says, "Put us together," it's like mixing vodka and milk. You know, just the things this guy came up with, and I don't want to say, you know, I label certain things, you know, I would put like as ignorant rap, like the things this guy is saying are so ridiculous, like I can't even picture going on, but ignorant in a way that it's like I'm so captivated by what this guy is saying.
Enraptured.
Yeah, man, like this album, the Hell on Earth album, particularly those two, I'm just like the things Prodigy is saying, man, I can't even, you know, begin to fathom it. He was in his own class with these kind of bars. His verse was super special, as we know. I really, really like the chorus. Havoc, also, a lot of people don't mention Havoc as being a spitter. They always kind of put him in the shadow of Prodigy, but I think this verse he does like so good. He has his line where he says, when worst come to worst, my people come first, which has been sampled as well. And my favorite line from Havoc on this song was when he says, screw looking cute, I'm strictly tin boots and army certified suits. I'm just like, man, this is like the dress code to have, right? It's just like amazing. Havoc and Prodigy really hit it home with this. And yeah, similar structure where they each have a verse apiece, a chorus. Amazing.
And just the beat on this one too, man. Just that. Oh man, it was so good and so like menacing that because I was still living in Maryland at the time, going back and forth to Ohio at Xavier University, and I just remember like being at home in Maryland, and I got to see Mobb Deep perform with Biggie in Baltimore at a club called Hammerjacks, and world renowned, and that was one of the more interesting shows I went to. But just seeing them in the winter, being home, you know, from school and stuff, and getting to see them perform at this tiny club in Baltimore, it was amazing, man. And like, it was just so awesome. And the Infamous, man, I'm losing my words, but let's refocus here, Amir. At least let me refocus. So for the Infamous, you know, these two songs, Shook Ones Part 2 and Survival of the Fittest, which one's better and why?
My favorite is Survival of the Fittest, man.
Okay.
It's amazing. I know probably the more popular one is Shook Ones Part 2. Survival of the Fittest is just so good, and Shook Ones Part 2 is obviously so good too. Survival of the Fittest is more my cup of tea, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, man. And shout out to Big L for also shouting out Shook Ones Part 2 and his amazing song Ebonics, because I forgot to mention that.
Well, I was going to say, Shook Ones Part 2 is my favorite, so I'm riding with Big L. But, as I often do, because he's great.
He's amazing.
But I just think Shook Ones Part 2, man, it's the lyrics on there, the way that Prodigy in particular describes the violence that he's going to inflict upon you and or others and or his enemies, I think is remarkable. I also think both the beats are phenomenal. This beat I think I like a little more because there's a little more to it, but it's a little more, I think, even menacing. It's hard to pick but these two, but they're both so good. So that's what I think. That's what Amir thinks. We don't agree on this one, but what about y'all, man? Hit us up. Let us know which Mobb Deep song you think is better, Shook Ones Part 2 or Survival of the Fittest. They're both off Mobb Deep, the Infamous, out in 1995 on Loud Records. Pick them up. I'm Soren Baker.
Amir Rahimi.
And be sure to like, subscribe, watch Unique Access and Rappin And Snackin. We'll catch you next time on The Great Debaters.
Be sure to check out The History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the DOC, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.